moving into some of, okay, what's new with Connect. And this is, we could probably spend an entire hour just on this particular piece of it, but we won't do that today. We'll just give you some of the highlights. Chris will dig a little bit more into some of these as well. So one of the biggest changes you can see off to the right here, new Communicator Client. So ShoreTel, the Communicator Client in its present state on version 13 and 14 hadn't gone through many changes the last couple of years. So new Communicator Client, you can see a lot more white space. It's a lot more modern looking, lots of different changes. Chris will dig into some of those. One of the big things of the client is that there's Windows and Mac client parity. So that's something that, as there's been I'd say a growth from our perspective in Mac users on ShoreTel the last several years. This will give complete parity between the client on PCs and Macs, which is great. Another big change historically on 13 and 14 ShoreTel, if you have ECC, ShoreTel's Enterprise Contact Center, that's been a part of the Communicator Client. ShoreTel actually separates that from the client, the desktop client going forward on Connect. And so ECC users really have a browser application. You can see a screenshot of it below from one of our team members. So that gets separated out of the regular telephony and collaboration piece that you can see off to the right. Another change is on the admin side, and this one usually makes all the administrators really happy, is the Connect Director, which is the new name for the Shoreware Director, has browser compatibility beyond Internet Explorer, finally and thankfully. So that's a nice little change. And then sort of a more broad description of what's new with Connect is ShoreTel spent a lot of time on collaboration enhancements. So ShoreTel, very rich history with telephony and call control in those pieces, and had been lacking, in our opinion, or at least in my opinion, the last few years on some of the collaboration enhancements. And so Connect picks up a lot of that slack around instant messaging and screen sharing, a native integration with Skype for Business, as well as enhancing some of the video capabilities. And last but not least on this piece is the enhanced soft phone. And this is kind of speak to a broader change with ShoreTel as well, as far as Connect facilitates a lot more capabilities for sure in the client. Soft phones is one of those big enhancements, and also some of the remote user capabilities. So soft phone was built on pretty old codecs and is a long time. It hadn't been updated in a long time. So Connect really improves that, enhances it. We've been using internally soft phone. Many of our users use it exclusively, so really good feedback on it, and it's been a great enhancement. A couple other updates that ShoreTel has marketed this one heavily, which is the ShoreTel hybrid capabilities of Connect. The hybrid deployment model, it's tough to see this exact picture, and I don't want to get into the details of it, but just to give you kind of a quick visual representation, what ShoreTel means by hybrid is if you have on your left ShoreTel on-premise system like you have today, and that's upgraded to Connect, you can connect your system with another ShoreTel Connect cloud system. So two disparate systems left and right here, premise and cloud, and the ability to connect those is what ShoreTel calls our hybrid deployment. What that connection means is the directories can be synced between the two systems. So you could have users who could have look in their directory and see a user that potentially is not even on their premise system, but they're looking at it and seeing that user. They wouldn't know any different as a user. It just kind of unifies the directory and syncs those. And then along with that, the ability, basically it's a SIP tie between the cloud and the premise system, so that calls can be 4-digit dials, or 4-digit dialing can happen between the two systems. So users can have the feeling of being able to dial between the two platforms. So that's ShoreTel hybrid, and what that means, that's available once you have your premise system on Connect, and then of course you would have to add a cloud instance for some remote site or group of users that would be on that platform. Another change, and Chris will dig more into the specifics, but new switches that are available and out there, and the gist of it is that they're more horsepower to them, so you don't have the IP resource trade-off where if you have analog connected, it reduces the amount of IP phones and resources you have available. So ShoreTel just really upped the horsepower on some of those newer physical appliances. The Edge Gateway, Chris will spend more time on as well, but just the high level of it is this is really a displacement for a VPN concentrator. So having physical phones outside your environment, outside of your network, the ability for them to tunnel directly back, hit this Edge Gateway and be a part of the ShoreTel system. as well as doing that from the physical phone side as well as from the client side. So your Connect client can do that as well. So Edge Gateway is an architectural change in Connect. It's a nice enhancement. Really allows for a lot more improvements around remote employees connecting back to the ShoreTel system. And lastly, Linux-based DVSs are now available on Connect. So if you don't want to have to manage another Windows server for your DVS servers, this gives you an option to run it, a Linux-based DVS, if you have VMware and you want to run it in there. So a couple last things that don't fit nicely into any sort of one bucket, but I think are really good things for all of, if you're a current ShoreTel customer and you're trying to think, what else do I need to know about Connect? Here's a slide I think that captures a lot of those other details. So with ShoreTel's general availability of upgrading to Connect, if you're on that general availability for that upgrade path and that supported path is if you're on version 13 or 14 today. Those are the supported upgrade paths. And that's consistent with ShoreTel's message really of officially supporting 2 versions back from the latest version. So they built and did all the testing around that upgrade path for those 2 major versions. Also, the really nice thing that I talked about new switches a moment ago. I don't need everyone to panic. Most everything, really almost everything, there's very, very few exceptions of phones or switches that aren't supported going forward on Connect. So while there are new switches available if you were expanding your system or wanted to refresh hardware, you have new switches you could do that on once you're on the Connect version. You don't have this upgrading to Connect does not mean you have to go out and replace all your phones and switches in most circumstances.